Hello and welcome to your session on neurodiversity. I'm Mrs. Mills and I'm a proud neurodivergent. And what we're going to do today is we're going to be looking at celebrating and embracing difference and hopefully thinking about opening up the world of hidden super skills that we all possess. Okay, so the aims of today's session, we're going to have a think and understand what neurodiversity is. We're going to reflect on the hidden nature of neurodiversity, think about the impacts of neurodiversity on communities. What does it mean to be neurodiverse in school and in education? And thinking about super skills linked into neurodiversity, but also thinking about our own super skills that we might not know that are there in our brains. We might not be able to see them, but we have them. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to watch a little video, and I'm going to give you an opportunity after the video to pause the video and write down your own definition of neurodiversity. Now, while we're watching this, they do mention a word cognition. Okay, and cognition is defined as the mental action and processes of acquiring knowledge and understanding how our experiences and our thought and our senses, how we perceive and react to that. So how we see it, how our brain changes and reacts to different stimulus, and understand also how it relates to storing and retrieving information. So it helps us make decisions and produce responses. So that's what cognition is about. Okay, so I'm going to share this video with you, and then we are going to have a little watch.
Neurodiversity is a term that applies to all those with neurological differences, including dyslexia, dyspraxia, ADHD, or the autistic spectrum, or indeed those who have a number of overlapping or co-occurring differences. It is being used more commonly to nurture the idea that these differences are a valuable variation, an important part of human diversity, something to be celebrated rather than cured. It recognises that everyone with a neurological difference is an individual, not part of a labelled group who will all behave, react, or learn in the same way. And it focuses on celebrating what people with additional needs can do, rather than what they struggle with, in order to fully realise their potential in school, employment, and life.
Okay, so I'm just going to share the PowerPoint again with you. And what I want you to do is I want you to have a think and write your own definition of neurodiversity. So just pause the recording at the moment and press play when you're ready after you have done your definition of neurodiversity. Okay, brilliant. I hope you've got your definition of neurodiversity in your books or what you are writing on today. We're going to move on now and have a little think about this. Who in this image is neurodivergent? Have a good look. See if you can see who they are. Okay, now I don't think you can tell. Okay, so one thing about neurodivergence is that actually we can't see who is neurodivergent. We can't see how any of those, we can't see how these people and what they're capable of when we're looking at them. We can't see how their brain works, if they see pictures, if they are a maths whiz or a super reader or an amazing problem solver. We can't see that. And now that's one of the problems that we have with neurodiversity. When we think of diversity, we usually think of physical things and things that you can see. But one of the difficulties with neurodiversity is that you can't see what anybody is capable of. And also, not only that, you don't know actually if what you see in your brain or how your brain works is the way majority of the people's brains work. So, for example, recently, having a conversation at home and with some friends, when I read a book or when I read information, I see a story in my brain. So I actually see the physical pictures moving along like I'm watching a movie. Now, to me, that was normal. That's how everybody must see when they read a book. However, after talking to people, I realized that some people just literally see the words and their brain understands them. Some people hear the words. Some people see whole pictures. Some people see half a picture and a word. And actually, because I thought the way that I see was normal, I wouldn't question it. We don't discuss what we see. So that might be a nice little discussion to have at home or with friends. When you read, what is it that you see? And if we don't have these conversations, we can't really understand people's super strengths and their skills. Okay. Now we're going to watch a video that's been made by HSBC, and I want you to have a think about what impact neurodiversity would have on friendship groups, at work and in communities. And I'd like you to make two columns, a positive column and a negative column. Okay, I'm going to play the video and then I'm going to ask you to pause after the video to complete that work.
If a person were to say to me, wow, you're really good at thinking about concepts, for example, the equivalent of that for me would be to say to a person, wow, you're really good at breathing.
People think that you're thick.
They think that I can't read.
That we're dumb, that we're slow, we're uneducable. Actually, it's quite the opposite.
I'm neurodiverse because I am autistic.
I have something that's called Asperger's syndrome, which is an autistic spectrum disorder.
I'm dyslexic.
I have Asperger's syndrome.
I'm dyslexic and I also have dysgraphia.
I have dyslexia and dyscalculia.
I got an ADHD diagnosis a few years ago, and it was actually the first time in my life that I made sense to myself.
I just think it's the way my brain's wired up, just wired differently.
I am not seeing what everyone else is seeing. There's obviously a huge advantage to that, but we've only learned to appreciate this potential over the last few years.
One way of understanding neurodiversity is if we've got people who we call normal, we call them neurotypical, they can see the visual spectrum of colours going from red to indigo. Neurodiverse people, they might not be able to see blue, but they can see in infrared. Now you've got somebody in your team who can see in the dark. Do you want to have that person in your team? Of course you do.
Many of my strengths, I believe, come from my autism.
I'm good at retaining knowledge. I know where to find the knowledge.
My brain is incredibly logical. One of my main traits is I can take lots of different sort of level 2D drawings and then make them into a 3D model in my head and be able to spin them around.
I'm very good at spatial things. I built a kitchen in our house 12 years ago, bought all the bits from IKEA and fitted the whole thing. And somebody said to me, well, when did you make a plan of that? I didn't. I did it all in my head.
So ADHD is basically like watching 30 different channels at the same time and somebody else is holding the remote control. I am calm in situations where a lot of other people get really anxious. There's limited fear to actually make a decision, which I sometimes find very helpful in business context, because sometimes we just have to decide something to be able to move ahead.
I can hold very large, very complex systems in mind.
The way I look at the world is black and white. It's not the grey areas in between. I can think logically, I can think straight down the middle, and it brings the team in together so that it's not going round and round in circles.
I think one of the biggest challenges for me is that neurological differences are invisible. Don't assume everyone else, just because they look like you or they have a similar job or that they think in the exact same way?
I would say definitely don't be afraid to talk about it. For me, I would say speak to your managers and let them be aware. And I think by doing that, it makes you more confident and more freer.
It's not something that all of us are easy talking about, but the more we do talk about it, the more people understand and will appreciate the different abilities and the different gifts that neurodivergent people can actually bring to HSBC.
Okay, so that was a video that HSBC did for their staff and to explain the benefits of neurodiversity. So what I'd like you to do now is I'd like you to just put 2 columns. I'd like you to think about the impacts of neurodiversity would have on friendship groups, in work and in communities. If you want to pause it now, do your activity and then come back and play me when you are ready. Okay, so I hope you've got some really good positives and negatives. And what I want to talk now about is if you're neurodiverse and you're in education, okay? Now, you may have seen this little clip or this picture before. And at the top, we've got a selection of animals, and we've got somebody behind the desk saying, for a fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam. Please climb that tree. Okay, and it says under there, our education system, everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. So, for example, if that we have that climb a tree, we have the bird and we have the monkey that's going to be able to do that much more efficiently than anybody else. They have the natural ability to do that. Now, if he had said, I would like you to move a heavy object. Now, the elephant is naturally going to have the ability to do that, such as if we said, I would like you to swim a distance. So we have the penguin, the seal, and the fish that's going to have a natural ability to allow them to do that. Okay, so in education, we do put a heavier emphasis on written word. And the reason that we do that is because we understand the link to knowledge and the link to doing well. And we have to use a standardized test to measure success, because we would have so many different tests that actually we wouldn't be able to measure a success in a unified or fair way to the majority. Okay, so the minority of people are neurodiverse. So we have set this test and these standardized tests for the majority of people, which is a very fair way to do it. However, I want you to have a think about how this could be a problem for some. How might the fact that we use standardized tests to measure success, by standardized I mean written or spoken tests, and why is that a problem for some people? Okay, so just give me a pause, write a couple of ideas down, and then come back to me when you're ready. Okay, and what I want to make sure that I make really implicit here is it is not the achievements that you gain at school should still be celebrated. It is not to say that people who get grade 9s at GCSE or A stars at A levels or a first class degrees on it shouldn't be celebrated. They should. They are amazing achievements. Okay, and we just have to understand how school and the education system can be hard for some people, because unlike standardized tests, they don't have a standardized mind. Their mind isn't standard, okay? And this is where it sometimes causes issues in education for those people that have minds that aren't standard. And we've got to understand that every single person in the world has a thing that they are absolutely amazing at, okay? They might be an amazing football player, they might be an amazing writer, they might be an amazing problem solver. Unfortunately, some people never find their thing, and that could be down to actually feeling like they're not worthy for a thing. They feel very much like thinking that they might be stupid because they don't succeed at school. Okay. Now, I'm hoping you recognise this fella. Okay. This guy is Colonel Sanders of KFC fame. Now, Colonel Sanders is a really, really interesting gentleman. He spent his whole life working various jobs. He didn't really have a passion. He got a job. He would move on to something else when he wanted a little bit of a challenge, but never really found a passion in anything that he did. Now, when he retired, he started cooking because he thought, oh, it might be a nice thing to do while I'm retired, and found it, absolutely loved it. And this is where he came up with his secret recipe, and he started selling chicken out of his home, and then it grew to a store, and obviously now it's a global brand. And he didn't find his thing until he was retired. So if you find your thing, hold on to it, develop it, and understand that in now or in the future, that will enable you to reach those dreams and enjoy the passion that brings with that thing. Okay. And it's never too late to search out your thing, just like Colonel Sanders. So, neurodiversity, super skills that link in with neurodiversity. So people that have ADHD are extraordinarily creative, they're resourceful, they're adaptive, they're very tenacious. Their superpower is the ability to hyper focus. So bring everything in, a bit like actually slowing everything down to understand every component. Autism, people on this have methodical and sophisticated analytical skills. Their attention to detail is amazing. Their brain is this huge steel trap of information. They can retain information fantastically, and also their long-term memory is superb. Dyspraxia have got super problem-solving skills. They actively recruited by MI6 for code cracking abilities. We have the strengths of dyslexia. People are empathetic. They see the big picture, really good problem solvers. Okay, and an interesting fact is that actually almost half of self-made millionaires are dyslexic. So those people who have set up a business after school, after their education, have become really successful. Okay, and one of the things that they say is the people that might be neurodiverse have to work hard in education. And one of the good things about education is actually instills the ability to work hard. We know what working hard looks like and feels like. And it's not to say that other people don't work hard. It's just there's no option but to work hard if you are neurodiverse. Okay, so here you might have seen recently that GCHQ has said that people that have dyslexia, those that value neurodiversity, like Alan Turing, are actually actively recruiting people. We have Elon Musk recently revealed he has Asperger's, so he's massively been able to develop and enhance a huge area. Okay, and we have ADHD, some famous people with ADHD such as JFK, Abraham Lincoln, Salvador Dali, Bill Gates, Walt Disney, Stevie Wonder. We've got Thomas Edison and Steve Jobs, amazing people that have the ability to use their neurodiversity to benefits. So we're going to have a think about what super skills you might have that people can't see. Now, we've talked about neurodiversity, but it doesn't mean that just because you don't have a diagnosis or just because you are technically classed as neurodiverse doesn't mean that you don't have these hidden skills that people can't see. So our brains are amazing places that allows us to do something. So you're going to be drawing a little person out, stick person if you can't draw a full person, and you're going to write all about your super skills that people can't see around it. Okay, so things like words into pictures, creativity, super speller, problem solving, decision maker, maths whiz. You might have super senses, your hearing might be amazing. photographic memory, creativity, okay? All these things that people can't see your brain doing may be your super skills. So what I want you to do is draw a little person, write all your super skills around it, and name it Superhero Me. Once you have finished doing that, sorry, if you pause the video first, do your activity, and then just hit play when you're ready, and I'll be here waiting for you. Right, I hope you've got some amazing superhero me's and some great ideas down on the page about your hidden super skills. Lastly today, we're going to watch a little video just to round it up, and I want you to have a think about what difference you could make. Okay, so thinking about making a difference to people, to communities, and understanding how neurodiversity is essential in our future.
Neurological differences like autism or ADHD are considered to be dysfunctional disorders and disabilities under the medical model of mental health. There's too little attention given to enabling people with neurologically different minds to be accepted for themselves, to discover and celebrate their strengths, and to find a place in society that values their differences. When most of us think of diversity, we think of things like race or sexual orientation, but there's a different kind of diversity you might not know about, neurodiversity. Neurodiversity is the concept that neurological differences among people should be recognized and respected. I believe it's time for this new social movement, the Neurodiversity Movement, to take off. Neurodiversity is a part of our genetics and of our evolution as a species. The genes for autism and ADHD are not errors, but rather are the result of variations in the human genome that have and will continue to have advantages for society. One of the genes associated with ADHD, the DRD4 gene, is known as the novelty-seeking gene. It arrived on the human evolutionary scene over 10,000 years ago. Genes associated with autism also go back more than 10,000 years. Research suggests that genetic variants linked to autism might have been positively selected during human evolution because they contributed to exceptional memory skills, heightened perception in vision, taste, and smell, a precise eye for detail, and an enhanced understanding of systems such as animal behavior. These characteristics likely remain in the gene pool today because they are still advantageous. As a psychologist advising the parents of differently wired kids, I tell parents they have a choice between trying to change the child to fit the environment and changing the environment to fit the child. There are many different microhabitats and subcultures in our world. For an individual with autism or ADHD, finding success on their own terms may come from discovering the particular niche that fits best, the niche that allows their strengths to shine and their challenges to be minimized. Individuals with ADHD tend to thrive in situations of rapid change, variety, and that reward creativity and out-of-the-box thinking. A career as a comedian, detective, entrepreneur, journalist, actor, EMT technician, or photographer could be. I'm not saying that having autism or ADHD is easy. And I don't mean to downplay the real suffering that can be caused by having a neurodevelopmental condition, disability, or difference. But it's also time the world sees the beauty and value in brain differences. Neurodiversity might be every bit as crucial for the human race as biodiversity is for life in general. My vision is for a neurodiversity tolerant and accepting society where differences are celebrated for the depth and dimension they bring to the human condition. I want children whose brains are wired differently to be encouraged to find their niche instead of changing to fit other people's ideas of normal. Diversity in every sense makes our world a better place, and people who think differently are a huge part of that.
Okay, so I'm going to leave it there for today. I hope you've enjoyed your session on neurodiversity. If you do have any questions or any comments, I'm always in LS6, lunch and breaks, if you want to come and find me. I hope it's given you a bit of food for thought. And I hope you have an enjoyable rest of your day. So take care, everybody. Bye.